Welcome to the Luminare Method.
There you go.
As she said, my name's Tom. I'm actually here because I have a pretty significant background in health, and I've been a nurse for 20 years or so now. Majority of that in critical care. I also have a pretty extensive background in fitness. Been an athlete my entire life. I've been a bodybuilder. I've done all of the things that I feel like health and wellness and fitness encompass. And with those things, I now understand the challenges that a lot of men my age and just men in general seem to face within our society, within healthcare, and within the fitness realm, and getting better and feeling better,
The
gaining
aging
muscle, the
process.
aging process. I'm 41 now. Nope, am I 42? No, I'm
Almost.
almost 42. So I'll be 42 in about 6 months. So I am what a lot of you are, and I think that's something that helps me to relate to you, and something that might maybe gives me a perspective that a lot of people in this position don't share. We encounter as a med spa, which is what Luminaire is. I feel like predominantly we encounter women. And I think that's what the society that we live in gears med spas towards. And a lot of men that are seeking this kind of healthcare, this kind of help, um, are pushed into TRT clinics or um, kind of a one size fits all approach that really isn't what's best for men. And I think that pushes us into categories that maybe not everybody fits into. So I think just my background with healthcare, my background with fitness, in the process of also getting my personal training certification as well as a nutrition certification, um, helps me to relate to you guys and to bring something to you that maybe most people in this realm can't. So, Allie, your turn.
Okay.
Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Well, I think it's good to know that Tom and I have known each other for over 10 years
Yeah.
now. We worked together in the hospital for a long time, both in critical care and emergency medicine. So it's really important that we tell you that we've seen the other side of medicine. And Tom still actively works in the hospital. I stepped away from the hospital, but we've definitely been there. So my background is also about 16 years in medicine, some of that as a registered nurse, most of that as a nurse practitioner. And I also got my doctorate in nursing leadership. And then I recently got functional medicine certified. And to Tom's point, like I said, we've seen tertiary medicine at its finest. People come in after the problems have occurred, whatever that might be. They've sought help or didn't have access to help for problems that they might have been able to fix earlier. Or the flip side of that coin is a lot of traditional medicine providers are, one, overworked, and two, they're not trained in some of the more niche things like women's health and aging process and things that can be done to help you feel better before you get to certain stages. And I have also lived in the fitness world for a while now. I've been on my own weight loss journey, like 120 pounds down, and kept it off. I am aging a little faster than your standard female because I had some health issues that happened earlier in my life. So I'm 36, but experiencing some things a little earlier than some of my friends might be, or some other females in my category, and trying to find ways to feel better and stay healthy.
Well, Allie, I know you mentioned your own weight loss journey. Why don't you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
So I've always been athletic, but I've always been on the heavier side. And then, of course, college hits and you stop moving as much and you get a little more
Mm,
sedentary and you don't have as much financial resources for some of the healthier foods. You're eating in the college cafeteria, the perfect paradigm really for weight gain.
right,
Freshman 10 turns into the senior 50 or whatever it may be.
right.
And so I got to an unhealthy weight. My worst was probably 225 pounds or so. When I was 25, I actually had a stroke from a genetic clotting disorder mixed with birth control, mixed with just an unhealthy lifestyle.
Mhm.
And when I woke up in that hospital bed, I said that was enough. I wasn't going to go down that pathway. So, aside from the genetic things that are out of my control, obviously, my husband and I both decided to start making some big changes. We just started moving our bodies. It was nothing overwhelming. We just started actually the Couch to 5K. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
but it's designed for people who go from very sedentary lives to running a 5K in about 12 weeks, I think. And here we are both running half marathons and full marathons now. But that's really what sparked the weight loss journey. And we started just paying attention to food. And I think it's really important. We didn't put ourselves on like this super strict diet because we just knew it wasn't going to work, right? Those things where you put yourself in these boxes and you take your favorite foods away and you try all these things. Those are the things that are not sustainable.
Right.
So we spent Monday through Friday eating healthy. And then on Sundays, we might pop to Wendy's or something and get what we still enjoyed. So you weren't taking that away from yourself. But we really got into running and lifting, and so 120 pounds down almost or so, and feeling great.
Well, and I think you touched on something that's really important. You said we there a lot. So your husband was really supportive through all that. And I think that's something that most people can relate to. You know, you feel like you're making these lifestyle changes and you're all alone.
Yep.
You feel like you're the only one who's doing that. You want to quit drinking, but your entire friend circle drinks. You want to stop eating out so much, but that's what you and your friends always do
for fun. Yeah.
You know, having someone to support you through that was really helpful.
Yeah, totally. We did it together and pushed us into communities that had similar outlooks on life, like fitness. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, not to continue on hounding you.
Yeah.
But you
Go
also
ahead.
mentioned that you're aging at a different rate than most
Yes.
women. What do you mean by that?
So after my health scare, I had to have a partial hysterectomy at the age of 26. So I still am able to make the normal amount of hormones that females make, but I'm slowing down a little bit quicker than most females. So perimenopause probably started around 34 for me, which is a pretty early stage. And at 34, it was prior to my exposure to Luminaire and functional medicine. I didn't really know what I was experiencing. I just didn't feel like myself. So my hair was changing, my skin was changing. I couldn't sleep. I was wide awake at 2 or 3 a.m. every day. It just didn't matter how hard I tried to sleep. Weight was starting to sit right in my center, and I had changed nothing. No fitness, no diet changes, nothing. And I didn't understand what was happening, and I was irritable. That might have been sleep related, but once I started researching more about what perimenopause is, it was like a light bulb came on, but nobody had taught me that. Nobody had talked to me about it. And I didn't know what to expect or even where to go for help, essentially.
Well, and I think there's a huge disconnect between, like we talked about, tertiary healthcare and women's health in general. You know, it's like there's kind of a weird disconnect. I know I just said that, but I think that's the best word for it. With what we know as mainstream medicine and healthcare and hormone
therapy or just like the trajectory that humans go on, right? And I think that medical professionals, like an ER doctor, they have to be so precise on what they do know. They only get exposed to women's health or even men's health on like a hormone level very briefly in med school. And it probably should be that way. We need everybody to have a specialty. So I think Luminare Fit is really going to start to fill this hole where medical professionals, I wouldn't want to say fall short because we both know they work so hard, RNs all the way up, but they just were not exposed to it. So you're starting to get providers like us who want to be exposed because we're living it. And that's where you're going to get a different type of medicine. So you know a little bit about my background, both professionally and personally now. And we know that you like fitness and we know that you're into nutrition. We know your background as a healthcare professional, but tell me a little bit more about why this space is so important to you.
Well, it's interesting because you know, I went a little different route than what you went. I was kind of the opposite. You know, I was always the skinny kid. I was always called scrawny and skinny, and grew up with parents and family members asking me where I was putting all the food at if I had another stomach in my leg, because I eat like crazy, but I can't seem to gain any weight no matter what. In fact, when I was a freshman in high school, my mom didn't let me play football, even though I really, really wanted to. Because I had friends that were big, and she was like, you have to weigh 105 pounds to be able to play football as a freshman. I did not make it. I tried so hard. And as a freshman in high school, I was 5'4", less than 105 pounds. So I went through high school, I ran track, I ran cross country, and I found kind of a niche that fit me well. I ended up running track in college. And while I was good at it and while I was fast, I certainly it wasn't beneficial to gaining muscle or getting larger size-wise. So even after college, I was still 175 pounds at my current height, which I'm almost 6'2". So then after college, I was actually in a really bad car accident. And I broke a lot of bones, and I was in the hospital for a while.
just being sedentary, like being in a hospital bed for 11 days, I lost over 20 pounds of muscle that I didn't have to lose. I had no extra fat. I was already like 5% body fat. And then just being sedentary in a hospital bed for 11 days, I lost an additional 20 pounds. So I got out of the hospital weighing about 150 pounds. I had a whole lot of rehab to do. I put in a whole lot of work. And whenever I felt like I was finally able to be normal-ish again and start training and start working out, I decided I was going to do triathlons. And so I did my first triathlon the weekend that would have been the year anniversary of my car accident. Got really into cycling for a while. And I remember the first time I was like, you know what? I want to get back in the gym. I want to go back and actually lift weight. And so I go to the gym, and I remember it was actually my high school gym, Odessa High School, OHS, shout out. And
Parkville South, class
yeah,
2008. There you go. Keep going.
2002. So I get to the high school gym, and I grab 40-pound dumbbells to do just a dumbbell bench press. And I can't lift the 40-pound dumbbells off my chest. And so embarrassed, because there was high school kids there that were making me look silly at the age of 22, 23 years old. I just like, I kind of made this mental like, okay, this is never going to happen again. And so while I still cycled and while I still did triathlons, my focus became on building strength, building muscle. Um, my triathlon career kind of culminated in 2012 when I did a half Ironman. It was amazing. I did really well. It was the hardest physical thing I've ever done. And then when I was done, I was like, you know, some people are like, when they do something like that, they're like, oh, what's next?
What's next?
For me, I was like, nope, I'm done with that.
Yep.
That was cool, but I'm gonna
Signed,
move on to
sealed,
something
delivered.
else.
Yep.
So I started to think about what is something that I've never gotten into before. And that really was a focused fitness plan, like actually trying to put on muscle. So I kind of had this idea of, you know what, I'm gonna get into bodybuilding. I'm gonna do a competition. So the first time I did a bodybuilding competition, I really was underprepared. You know, I always had a six pack. Like since I was 12 years old, I've had a six pack. So I thought I could pretty much just get up on stage and be like, here we go. And I was wrong. It was very eye-opening.
We'll have to drop that pic in the show notes.
For sure. For sure. I'm sure I'll find the pic down below. So
I'll put my worst photo there too, just so we can share.
okay. But it was eye-opening for me in that it also showed me how much there was I had to learn, and not just posing, not just the bodybuilding aspect, but learn as far as nutrition and fitness and actually building muscle. So I put a whole lot of effort into that, and I was always self-trained. I always did my own diet. I had a few friends that were in bodybuilding too, so like they helped me with posing and that kind of stuff, but I never hired a coach, nothing like that. So I was always able to bring and to tailor the decisions I was making to my own body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was never a one size fits approach. It was always a lot of research. Let's try this, and then let's see what that brings, what that causes. At one point, I was getting super, super lean, and this actually kind of takes us into the world that we're in now, like the Luminare Fit world. When I was getting very lean in that 4% body fat range, I was noticing like my libido was really falling off. I was really struggling with sleep. I was really, really moody, like you spoke to earlier.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started like looking into, all right, what could be causing this, you know? And a lot of people don't realize that when you get really, really lean like that, your hormone regulation completely falls off. Your body doesn't really know what to do with it. Women that are in bodybuilding also experience things like that when they get super lean. So a lot of times women won't even have a period when they get that lean. So I started looking at other things, and I felt like it was probably related to testosterone. And I worked night shift the majority of my adult life. So I started thinking about, okay, what things can I do short of actual steroids that would help me feel better, that would help me look better, act better. And so I started putting a lot of those things into play in my life. Supplementation, nutrition, trying to support my own hormones the best way that I knew how. And I think
we kind of fall into this world now, especially with men, as far as like hormone replacement, that goes either you're like not gonna do steroids at all under any circumstance, or you're like, give me all the steroids. I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I
Yep.
want to look like a 1970s, 1980s bodybuilder.
Yep.
Or what I'm kind of catering towards now and what I'm hoping to find now is those people that are somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, people that recognize that the world that we live in, the lifestyles that we live, all of the chemicals and the foods and the things that we're exposed to actually negatively impact our hormones. And if we as humans want to improve the way we live, the way we feel, the way we age, then treating those things or mitigating that damage is important. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that. You know, we have men and women that are shamed for the lifestyle choices that they make in order to try to feel more confident, feel better about themselves. And it's kind of sad that we live in a society that is completely okay with the negative implications of the world that we live in, but are not okay with our efforts to what's the word I'm looking for?
Improve.
To improve those things,
Mhm.
you know? So I kind
Or
of
they're not
started,
even interested in exploring other options.
right.
Like you said, it's the one size fits all medicine.
hmm So that kind of was the way I got into kind of a focus and a passion of like hormone stuff, you know, and doing as much as I could to support my hormones without really ever stepping into a world of not being natural. You know,
Yeah.
like I felt like that was important to me. Now that I'm 42, not quite.
41 and
I'm
a
aging
half.
myself by
You
6 months
are.
every time I say that. It's just that I'm old and I'm losing track. No.
Mental clarity is a problem.
It is. It is. So, it is something that I'm wanting to focus more on, and the recognition that maybe there aren't things that I can support as well as supplement with.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's uh that's a little bit about my story, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of how I ended up here. You know, um, it's funny because at one point, my focus was to put on as much size as possible,
Yeah.
as much muscle, be as big as I possibly could. And I carefully sculpted my diet. I was careful about my nutrition and my workout regimen. And I got up to 235 pounds. And I remember at that time, I felt a little chubby. I really, looking back at those photos, I really wasn't chubby
No, you weren't.
in the broad scheme of things, but I felt a little chubby because I had always been skinny my whole
Yeah.
life.
Tiny.
But I do remember that feeling a little chubby was way better than feeling scrawny. And I was like, never
I'm going to go the
ever.
opposite way. I'd rather feel a little bit scrawny than chubby.
Yeah, I was like, never ever will I ever be called scrawny again. That became a new life goal. That being said, I don't want to be chubby.
My life goal was I could walk into any store and buy something, you know, like
Mm.
clothes wise. There will never be another store I will walk into where I can't purchase whatever it may be, pants
See,
or a
like,
shirt or something like that.
I'm 6'2" with kind of weirdly long arms, so
Okay,
that's
but
still a
men
struggle
are
for me
different.
sometimes.
You're different. You're so different. It's not like we have a big and tall for women.
Mm, it's
Or
true.
if we do, those stores carry very negative connotations and
Yeah,
you don't want to step through those doors
for sure.
ever.
So what brought you to Luminaire?
So I've been actually a client of Luminaires for a while. One of the owners, Jen Conrad, makes me look pretty on a regular basis. Shout out to Jen. And she knew what I did for a living. And when I got my nutrition certification before I got functional medicine certification. And that made her start to think about what she could do to bring me in. And they originally brought me in just as a nutrition advisor to help make their weight loss program a little more robust. And then eventually we all decided we liked each other and I transitioned into also the aesthetic side of things, injector. And then they let me pop the lid on the wellness industry and get into hormone replacement therapy and peptide therapy. So I left the hospital after 16 or 17 years or so in October of 2024 and haven't looked back.
Good.
Okay, how'd you get here, Tom?
So I
He knows a
actually,
girl that's extra cool.
so Allie and I work together now for like over 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of these conversations about hormone replacement and about peptides and about the difference between like functional medicine and tertiary medicine in our
Using
own lives.
GLP-1s
Right, for sure.
appropriately and correctly and what they
Um,
can truly do for your
yeah,
body.
and this has been something that we had talked about for quite a while. It was a pretty frequent source of our own
Yeah.
conversations, and I had batted around the idea of what it would look like to start doing hormone replacement therapy, doing peptides, developing a client base, and how exactly that would look. And there's a whole lot of hurdles involved in doing that as just an individual, who doesn't bring. While I do bring a whole lot of experience, I'm not a doctor, um, not a nurse practitioner. So there's a lot of things that I would have had to overcome to be able to bring that to the forefront to clients. And so it was something where, Allie asked me like, okay, well, if that was something that you're that passionate about, like, is that something that we could offer here at Luminaire? And a lot of the things were already in place. A lot of the things that needed to be in place to really take off, to really bring this kind of thing to clients was already in place with Luminaire. I was able to just kind of step in and bring my knowledge and bring the research and bring my lived experience, right into helping what I feel like is helping Luminaire offer a more well-rounded wellness offering to
And
the
that's been
clients
their
that we bring
goal,
in.
like Luminare
Right.
Aesthetics and Wellness, and they've been working really hard to get into the wellness space. And I found, when I built the HRT program, while I felt very confident in treating females, I did not feel that confident in treating males. I was happy to have conversations with them, happy to go through their labs and make choices, but I felt like they were also a little less open with me about
For
why they
sure.
were coming. And so I felt like with the two of us, and we're happy to see either males or females, both
Yeah.
one, whoever, but it offered another perspective
Yeah,
for
for
our
sure.
clients.
Well, and I
So,
think men tend to be keep things like that pretty close to the chest, like, um,
well, and I'm not a 41-and-a-half-year-old male, so I don't know what 41-and-a-half-year-old males feel like. And
right,
you're not a 36-year-old female. You don't know what 36-year-old females feel
for
like.
sure.
So it just is the right perspective.
Yeah.
You know?
So it gives me an opportunity to bring some experience to those men, to hear them out, um, and to maybe work together
Yeah.
to build the life that they're really striving for.
Yeah.
That their goal life. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what I want. That's the life that I want to live from here on out.
Yeah.
I don't want to just get by. I
Yeah.
just don't want to feel good enough.
Yeah. I don't want to be irritable all the time.
We don't want you irritable all the time.
I think that's reasonable. I'd
John,
like to sleep
John
past.
doesn't want you irritable
Yeah,
all the
I'd like
time.
to sleep past 3 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that'd
sure.
be nice. Yeah.
Well, and I think moving forward, like in life, like my wife and I, that is something really important to us, is living a healthy lifestyle, being active, feeling good, um, pushing ourselves in a positive way, and while there are a lot of like physical, superficial benefits to that, I think it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's so much deeper than that.
I think this podcast is just going to be your real life access to us and what we experience personally and professionally and what we're trying to bring to the table. And while you can get bits and pieces of Luminaire on social media, which is super great, this is your opportunity to get to know us like on a much deeper level. And Tom and I can talk to each other for hours, so you're in luck.
Right. So unfortunately, I think we're about out of time for
I
today.
know.
But hey, if you guys have questions, if
Yes.
there's things related to wellness, related to HRT, related to peptides, weight loss,
Anything, even
aesthetics,
aesthetics. Yeah.
any of that stuff, please just drop in the comments or shoot us a message or give us a call. I think maybe our next podcast, I don't know how often we're going to do these. We should strive
Question
for
mark?
like answering questions. Like maybe that should be the goal.
Yeah.
Start with that and then kind of see where that branches out.
We're also going to be launching our peptide stacks too. So
Yes, as of January 1st. So keep an eye on our socials for specials, because we will be launching peptide stacks in January.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that.
Okay, so thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time on the Luminaire Edit.
Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you next time on Luminare Method.